I think that capitalism is a more realistic system of governance than communism is.
On that, and a lot of people would say that it does need to be an incremental thing, and we need to work towards that.
What would you say? This is my issue with communism. Right? Once you're saying mad stuff like this, you can tell you've gone too far. I wonder if I, not a socialist, was able to answer that question very easily, or this guy's just going to flounder.
I know that I'm a capitalist. And so I've been trying to think, how do you square that with my other, socialist ideas? And I think if there isn't, there should be a thing, and it's a little bit of an oxymoron. It sounds silly, but I do think it can be and is a real thing. Benevolent capitalism. Does that sound silly?
It's called being a social democrat.
So, okay. Yeah. So what I think is if you like the idea of capitalism, then you need to also accept the inevitable downsides of capitalism. If how you live is dependent on you working, right? Then you need to guarantee people jobs. It doesn't make sense. So because without that, then you're basically saying,
I don't know if you can guarantee people jobs. You should have a social safety net so that if people aren't in work or can't work, then there's some kind of provision for them. I don't think you can just say, oh, well, actually, you should guarantee people jobs, because then you just have people getting paid to do essentially nothing, or just do busy work. Which I think is actually soul destroying. I think if you're just paid to do something pointless just for the sake of it, I think that probably is kind of soul destroying.
Yeah, just as a consequence of this, some people are going to be homeless and destitute. And so that's unacceptable, right? I mean, that's psycho. I just accept that as a fact of life.
I generally agree with what Ethan's saying here, but the homelessness thing, again, on the side, it's not just because people don't have jobs. That's because people have mental health problems very often that aren't getting treated, that have addiction problems that aren't getting treated. Often the addiction is to medicate some kind of mental health problem. No one's treating them. There needs to be a huge amount of spending, a huge amount of funding to get these people into programs that can help them. That unfortunately, right, it's not simply as simple as going, hey, we've got you a job in a house. Okay, he's not going to show up. His life's not in the right state. You have to help him more.
And so, I think the government should have guaranteed jobs for people that want to work. That pay enough for the minimum amount needed to have shelter and food. I think shelter should be guaranteed. I think food should be guaranteed. Because, again, we want the capitalist society and all the good things that benefits us. I do like the system of capitalism. I think it's good. But so we want all the good things, but at the same time, it does, if it's unchecked, it makes society, the distribution of wealth and the stability of society goes totally off keel. And if you need a job to provide food and shelter, then again, that's the capitalism, right? So you have to guarantee those things. So I think work, food, and shelter should be guaranteed rights of people living in capitalism.
And education.
And
healthcare.
Right. Food, shelter, all of those things. Again, I don't know about guaranteeing people jobs, because, again, you end up spending huge amounts of money just employing people to do things that aren't necessary. Although, just to be clear, that's not to say the state shouldn't intervene to try and get jobs. If there's high unemployment, yeah, the government needs to intervene. I just don't think you should say 100% of people will always have a job. If we have to have you rolling a big ball around a park, then we'll pay you to do that. That seems silly to me.
Right, and healthcare should be too, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those are even the three most
healthcare,
basic. But healthcare, should be, and education should be too. You're right. And it makes sense to me, because you want to exist in this world where it's all about money. It's all about market forces and all this shit. You can't just regulate on the top. You have to regulate on the bottom too, to control for the outcome.
So yeah, you are, everything you just described is almost social democrat to a T. I mean, this is what think like FDR. Democrat.
I love his second Bill of Rights.
Yeah, Democrats pre 1970s is everything that you're describing,
the
at least ideologically. They
second
didn't always
bill-
live up to all those things, but that was the kind of prevailing wisdom.
Sort of, interestingly enough, the government of under which president the US, at least in terms of state spending on public services and the economy, was actually closest to socialism. It was Richard Nixon. That's not to praise Nixon. The guy was a war criminal and a liar, but he did actually spend a lot on the economy. He did actually have a lot of programs that he was spending on the economy. I'd have to look them up to go over them, but it's just interesting.
Some at the time.
The second Bill of Rights would have been the greatest thing that happened to this country, man. That's crazy. Ethan, describe one good thing about capitalism. First of all, I think it's like the natural inclination of some people. Like, I don't think it's even realistic to say, I want to live in like a perfect communistic society, because that just doesn't work. It's antithetical to human nature. But I do think there are good things of capitalism provides, which is, I do think there is a sense of innovation that happens when people are motivated by money and pushed to, do certain ideas and to invest in certain ideas that like the government isn't doing.
This is true, right? Even if you wanted some kind of socialist system, right, you'd have to find a way of motivating people in a different way. Sure, somebody like who maybe builds a tech company or builds some crazy app, yeah, they might still want to do it. Scientists might still just do it anyway, even if we're dividing resources equally. But how do you replicate the innovative potential of capitalism? How do you replicate the kind of innovation you get when you have markets and you have private companies who are trying to make the most money in the market? Right? Now, of course, this is what Ethan's saying. That's a great system if you regulate it properly. Ethan's being very based here.
I don't hate the idea of like people who can be successful. I think it's good that people can achieve success in the term monetary success. I mean, that's what that means, right? I do. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good. I think it's good. It encourages efficient.
Why does Ethan always sound like he just can't be, like he's just half asleep or can't be bothered? Like, I like Ethan, I have nothing against him, but I just think it's funny that he's always like, I just think that's, good. You know what I mean? He's not like an energetic guy. Look, him and what's his wife's name? They both look like they actually both look like they can't be asked.
Efficient production, right? I mean, if there's a money incentive, like if everything was owned by the government, it would remove a lot of efficiency, perhaps, when people aren't motivated by money and stuff. But this is all silly. Again, it all sounds very vapid, and when you describe it, because capitalism is inherently, it seems like, based on hedonism, right? It doesn't come from like an altruistic place. So that's why the important part is to make sure that there is altruism and humanity that is kept in this, rat race, which is capitalism. That's it. The second Bill of Rights, FDR tried to pass, and he was close too, man. The right of every family to a decent home, the right to adequate medical care, and the opportunity to achieve and enjoy good health, the right to adequate protection from economic fears of old age, sickness, accident, and unemployment, the right to a good education. He was going to draft the second Bill of Rights, and it was close. It was really close to passing. He was on some king shit, wasn't he?
That'd be interesting if that would have passed. You know what would have happened?
There you go. I don't know what the fuck you want from me. I think that capitalism is a more realistic system of governance than communism is, Communism never works because people are inherently corrupt, and
I'm sorry, this is my issue with communism, right? It's never ever been achieved Because even the communist countries never got past a kind of brutal, twisted form of state socialism, right? They never really got past that. So, and most communists will tell you, oh yeah, but they weren't really communist, which they weren't, because it's impossible. So, but then you have a system, because I think a lot of anti-capitalists generally, and we'll probably see this come up more in the debate, don't fully understand that capitalism isn't an ideology like socialism that was kind of made up, not made up, that was kind of designed to fulfill a particular function. It just kind of happened organically, right? It just kind of grew as a product of the Industrial Revolution and markets. So, plus a kind of like liberalization of society and a move away from feudalism. So, it's very difficult to then manufacture a system that can replace capitalism, that can completely shift the economy when it's just so complicated, right? And every time they try, you end up with the state needing more and more power until you just have a tyrannical state that's, in a way, socialist. Like, I mean, in the Soviet Union, everyone was guaranteed a house or a job, but like, even in the way it behaved was really that socialist. You essentially created a new feudal class in the party. So this is it. When people are then proposing these systems, it just doesn't seem credible. You know, well, every time someone's tried, they've failed, and you try and replace a system that just kind of happened naturally with one that you've constructed with no evidence that it can possibly work.
Charged is they're gonna be greedy, they're gonna be corrupt, they're gonna fuck everything up. It doesn't make sense to me that system could work where everybody just acts in good faith and does the right thing. So as long as there's no like mega losers in capitalism,
I don't think the issue with communism is that it's just people will always act in good faith. Although I think, as I said, because they arrest at state socialism, once you have the state with that level of power, you'll kind of attract power-mad lunatics. And I think the issue isn't that people aren't always good. I think the issue is just the economics just flat out doesn't work. No one's ever been able to successfully get transition from capitalism to communism, or even to like a proper form of socialism that actually is what socialists intend. Because socialists don't, like idiot tankies online, right, don't intend to create the Soviet Union. When I say socialist, of course, I'm talking about like actual anti-capitalist socialists.
Regulate, then I do believe that it can be a benevolent thing. Yeah, capitalism breeds greed, exactly. And you know, they say greed is good, and there is some truth to that in measure, right? It's, you know, it's an inherent quality of man, and it can sometimes drive
I mean, yeah, greed can sometimes drive good things. I don't know if I would say greed is good, because I think greed's going to always make you, well, it's going to make you greedy, right? And then you're going to behave I think it's going to make you compromise your morality a lot in the name of your greed. Being driven is great. Having a vision is great. Being hungry to get there is great. Those things are all great. Obviously, it depends what the vision is. But, you know, generally speaking, assume it's a good vision. That's great. Greed is what causes the problems. Yeah. So I think some of Ethan's analysis is wrong here.
innovation, efficiency, all this kinds of stuff, you know? You think that because you benefit from it, Ethan? Obviously. Yeah. Yes.
Well,
That's
his
actually a
opinion is
great
obvi-
response. I never thought of that. Because you go, well, okay, because I would usually do some mega autist thing of going, well, okay, well, it doesn't matter if like my judgment's clouded. If my argument's either right or wrong. You might say it's wrong, and the reason I believe the wrong thing is because my judgment's is because my judgment's clouded. But you have to evaluate the argument. But that's a way better response. That's a much better response. Yeah, I benefit from capitalism. I see the benefits. I experience the benefits. I support it. I also see there are negatives, and that's why I want the state to intervene to try and mitigate the negative impacts of capitalism. That's actually a great response,
going to be
even though I did pad it out a bit.
his opinion based on his experience.
But I feel like that's always been my opinion, frankly. So
I'm just saying the fact that it benefits you is obvious that it's going to affect your opinion. It is your opinion.
it just seems like this fucking like socialist, communist idea that people want is like just a pipe dream.
What is the idea that people want? I'm kind of curious
Well-
because I see so many people in the chat saying no.
I don't know what y'all are tripping about. Like, what the fuck do you want?
What is the idea
Take?
that
Are you
people
guys like
are
just-
looking for
I don't know.
to hear?
I actually don't know. Like, it's almost like weird virtue signaling to be like, I'm living in modern day America, but I want a full communist revolution. I don't know what the fuck. I'll take on humanity, dude. You guys are. Ow.
Dan, do you know? Because you know everything.
Yeah, I don't really. Do you really want to get into this right now?
I don't mind.
I'm
I don't
actually
really wanna
curious.
get into it right now. So
Okay,
Well,
that's
they
fine.
think that, like-
I'm actually curious what, because like it seems like majority of the chat is disagreeing, and so I
Well,
was
we have
like,
a very left-leaning audience here on the H3 podcast, and I'm sure plenty of people will agree with you. I'm sure, but and obviously, the people
I think
that
we are left leaning too. so that's fine.
Anti-capitalists are going to speak up when you're giving an impassioned defense of it, but
I wouldn't say it's impassionate, but I do defend. I am a capitalist. What do you want? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I
pretty
think
much.
it's. But the thing is, like, they think that like workers should share in the.
yeah, that's the fundamental difference. Is that
workers should get a percent of your earnings, essentially, a percentage of their production.
Jesus Christ.
I-
How hard is it to say that they should like reap the fruits of their labor or they should get the like I'm not it's like I'm not to like super shit on Ethan, but like it's like, you know, to that they should get the thing that they do from the value of the you know labor or whatever. It's like okay, bro.
I don't agree with that. I don't think. I mean, in some cases it's true, but I think you do have an obligation to make sure your employees are well provided for.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, that's for sure. Suck it, chat. You're watching a capitalist pig. Deal with it. I don't know what the fuck. You guys are all like radical communists? There's that many radical communists?
they're not radical
It's
communists.
shit,
Not
man.
everybody that's anti-capitalist is a communist.
It is kind
by
of a
any-
radical take, that being like full anti-capitalist. I mean, you're essentially advocating to change the entire structure of all societies today on Earth. That's not radical?
Is there anywhere in the world that is doing that?
Not really. China's apparently communist, but it's not
No,
really.
it's not.
It's not. The people couldn't do whatever they wanted
North
during
Korea's
COVID.
communist. Well,
Yep.
not really.
Yeah, that's not really.
Yeah. Russia is, well, what? I don't know what Russia is. No, not really. I don't think there
No.
is. I don't think there really is. But how is being anti-capitalist not radical? Just in theory.
That's a great question.
Because how,
it is.
like,
Because the United States isn't the whole world, dude. Like
what country is not
I mean,
capitalist?
I'm from
most of
Israel,
Western
but
Europe
it's pretty
has
much the same
large
thing.
Anti-capitalist socialist political parties. Some of them in
Wow.
power at times.
Wow.
Some of them. Yeah. It's
Which like hardcore anti-capitalist, like maybe Labour sort of in a way. I mean, even Labour like under like not Labour under Keir Starmer, they're basically a Conservative party, but maybe Labour under Attlee, but even then it wasn't anti-capitalist. So it was very. Especially, like, it was social democracy. They would refer to themselves as socialists, but they didn't actually try and overthrow capitalism. So they just bought in a welfare state. So I don't see anywhere where anyone's actually, they're not just people calling themselves socialist, because there are plenty of social democratic parties across Europe that call themselves the Socialist Party or whatever. So yeah, like I don't know when we get people who it's a lot of American lefties who just go, oh yeah, a lot of Europe's socialist. Like where? A lot of Europe's social democrat is like there are a lot of social democracies. Well, at least there were some. There were more, but then they kind of got dismantled in the 80s, like Britain.
definitely.
They're capitalist countries, bro. Name one European country that isn't a capitalist country.
No, yeah, you're right. They're all capitalist countries.
Wow!
Okay.
Crumbled straight away.
You know, there's plenty to criticize for modern capitalism. Lots. It's not working in its current form. It's just totally broken in its current form. Like this late stage capitalism that like this subreddit, like it's very poignant, I believe, with the late stage capitalism. You know, it's not working, for sure. But like, name one. You know, social democracies do great in Europe.
Yeah.
Sweden, for example.
Yeah, I'm because you're explaining Sweden pretty much, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like a capitalistic country with insanely high social benefits and security
That's what
system.
I would like to
taxes.
see.
That's what I've lived in my whole life, and I'm curious what these people have to criticize. I mean, there's a lot of to criticize.
Ask Dan. You have a radical
I mean,
communist right next to
like,
you.
it's got-
I actually don't know what the criticism is for.
Look, it's got that IKEA. I got like the background. Like IKEA is a great example because a lot of people say, "Oh, Sweden's socialist." It's like, well, if you have no taste, do you buy furniture from the Swedish People's Furniture Distribution Bureau? No, you buy it from IKEA, right? A multinational, massive, multi-billion-dollar corporation, right?
Economy. So
That's
I'm
exactly
also
what I
for-
would love to see. Like, that's what I don't understand why everybody is like that.
And I'm sure there are. I'm not saying there isn't. I'm genuinely curious. I don't know.
I think that
I think
Scandinavia.
that a lot of young people see that capitalism, whether you think it has brought a lot of improvements to people's lives, is a system that is killing the planet, and especially.
Like, this is an argument I actually get where people are coming from, but I still can't stand it because it's industrialization, right? The Soviet Union pumped out massive amounts of carbon. Didn't they destroy like one of the world's largest saltwater lakes? Like massive, or one of the world's largest lakes. I don't know if it's saltwater, which is called the sea. So I should. Yeah, anyway, right? They destroyed like loads. They had insane nuclear tests all over the place. I remember watching a thing that Vice did about Kazakhstan where they had a triangle where they just wanted to see what radiation would do to people. So they detonated nukes nearby. Like ridiculous, like the amount of environmental despoilation done by the Soviet Union, done by China. I mean, fair enough, even if you want to say, okay, well, China did a lot of that after it was capitalist. Yeah, it was still doing it under Mao. It's industrialization. It was industrialization and the burning of fossil fuels that was destroying the planet, right? That's what's destroyed the planet. It wasn't, because it's capitalism. And if you had a load of socialist countries, they immediately would have got rid, they never would have even done coal power. Yeah, they would. You know, they would have burned coal, they would have burned oil, they still would, right? If we had a communist revolution today, right, they'd still be arguing over a huge argument over things like net zero. And some people would say, well, it's going to hurt the workers. Other people would say, okay, but we have to do it for the planet. I don't see how these debates couldn't be happening under some kind of socialist or communist system.
Especially in the last 30 to 40 years, most people, I think, at least I can really only speak, I'm just going to speak on the United States because that's my experience and what I've gone around, is like you said, you were just talking about that subreddit that's kind of all centered around it. I feel like people see the decline happening and they're fundamentally unhappy with the way that we have arranged our society. And to act like it was eternal and was always like this is kind of naive. I mean, capitalism... Well, because capitalism is something that has only existed for about 200 years in like the form that we know it.
I didn't say it's always been like this.
Right, but I'm just saying that like
form of government.
But it changed though. But it changed organically though over a long time. It's not like we had feudalism and then there was a capitalist revolution. There was a gradual shift as you had industrialization, as then money shifted towards the cities and towards business, like towards capitalists rather than the landed gentry. Although, interestingly enough, in England, they just said, well, hold on, we own all the land, let's turn the land let's use that as capital and just be capitalists with land. So they did do that here, to be fair. But looking at the world and thinking things are going wrong is valid. There's a lot going wrong in the world. There's a lot going wrong. There's all kinds of problems, like we mentioned climate change, wage stagnation. Yeah, there's so many like huge problems, but proposing a system that's never worked, that no one's ever seen manage to work, and saying that, well, actually we can use that system that we've just kind of developed to completely overturn the entire way we've organized all of our societies. It's just not believable. It's not credible. It doesn't sound like it's not going to happen. That's pie in the sky thinking. I understand why, in response to bad things, people engage in pie in the sky thinking, but that doesn't make it right.
Think that we have figured it out, that we've found the best system of organizing society.
I think that
Like we're at the end of history.
I think part of it you have to tangle with is what's realistic. Like, what's a realistic
Okay,
way
right.
for
Yes,
people to form?
exactly.
I feel like if we're
How do you
talking about
define
America,
what is realistic about a society that, I mean, we live in Los Angeles. There's thousands of homeless people.
Well, we're living in it now, so it's pretty realistic, given that it's the real one, not the hypothetical one. That's the bit that makes it realistic. It's the real one that's actually happening now.
Starving on the street in our neighborhood.
Well, I'm not advocating for that.
Right, but I'm saying that people see the flaws in the system that we currently have, and so that
I see them too.
And there's a lot of, and this is the thing, you're saying like everybody's a radical communist. That's not necessarily the case. Being anti-capitalist doesn't equate that. It just is somebody that has landed on the side of the coin that they think that the system that we have, that capitalism, is not working. And there's a
I agree,
huge
though.
variety of people
I agree
ways
with
that
everything you're
people
saying.
go from that. Well, and some people, I mean, most Republicans, and I would say even a lot of Democrats would say what you just described, that social democrat kind of point of view.
They're not,
Would
though.
say that you are anti-capitalist with that point of view.
Then
Because
fine. Then I accept that.
Right.
I mean, say whatever the fuck
and
you want.
social democrats.
Yes. It's doing really well here. Okay, like better than I would have expected. It's just like, yeah, okay, fine, then let them say that. Because what does it matter? If there's like, well, actually, do you know there's some like right-wing and even centrist people who might say that by being a social democrat, you're anti-capitalist. Okay, well, let them say it.
Democrats are very often seen as kind of like right on the fence between the what people call the left and the right.
So I'm
What?
walking the
In most
middle path,
contexts-
like
What?
some like Buddha
Sorry. No, he's got me memeing. There's something
Himself.
going on there. But just go.
Most Republicans, and I would say even a lot of Democrats, would say what you just described, that social democrat kind of point of view.
They're not. Whatever the fuck.
Right on the fence between the very often seen as kind of like right on the fence between the what people call the left and the right.
So I'm
which
walking
in
the
mo-
Sorry, who the fuck thinks social democrats, right? Like in Sweden, or like Clement Attlee or someone, are on the fence between left and right. Once you're saying mad stuff like this, you can tell you've gone too far, right? It's the same way my dad is very right wing and will call me a liberal or communist because he's gone too far. So once you're calling, well, actually, you know, social democrats, you know, people who say, okay, we should nationalise utilities, we should have a really high minimum wage, we should have big welfare provisions, we should have state control of oil, gas, all of this. Those people are actually really on the fence between left and right. That is insane. They are not centrists. You have gone too far. You have gone too far. Right, to the left, or the right, really. No, to the left, yeah. When you look at social democrats and go, yes, these people are centrists.
Middle path,
context-
like Buddha himself.
right, you're taking the middle path.
don't you feel though that here in America, like people can't even afford healthcare or education? So like, isn't a social democracy a first step that we should all try to get to?
Yeah, a lot of people do feel that way.
before
I
like
mean, there's-
trying to get to like
A lot
There's
of
I
people
want
feel
shares
that.
in
amount of
every
nuance
business
and
I work.
That's, a lot of people feel that way. Sure they do. I mean, a lot of people feel that Donald Trump should be president again, but you don't agree with that. So say why you don't agree with it. Don't just go, well, you know, a lot of people feel that way. Well, yeah, so what's your position on that? A lot of, it seems Weasley like he doesn't want to go, no, I think that's wrong because of this. It seems like he's kind of going, oh, well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people do feel that way. But as a way of like not actually going, hold on, no, you're wrong, Ethan. And here's why. I'm not sure if it's because he wants to suck up to Ethan or because he just has no answer. Or both.
Breeze here, yeah.
So I think
100%.
that this.
I think that it's like for us, mostly talking about like what we see as realistic, like what's the first step that we should at least try to get, like the bare minimum. I've been here 7 years. I'm still shocked about healthcare. Like it shocks me
Yeah.
every single time I deal with
It is shocking.
I paid $200 just to get a blood test. Like
Right.
it's insane. It's insane. So to me, it's like, yeah, we can talk like philosophical and we can talk all kinds of things, but I feel like what's actually going to happen? What's something that would be a first step to improve?
Well, I mean, there's a variety of opinions on that, and a lot of people would say that it does need to be an incremental thing, and we need to work towards that.
What would you say?
Even people
What
who
would you
describe
say,
themselves
bro?
as communists say that because, again, like the USSR, for example, which is the most famous example of like a big country, a big superpower level country that people consider communist, right? Within their own framework, they never thought that they were communist. They thought they were taking steps towards communism, and in a variety of different ways. And so it's just about
because
like,
they never.
that's an
Because
ideal.
communism was impossible. I've seen Slavoj Žižek bring up that he knew people in the former Yugoslavia who were actually really believed in communism, who just got removed from the party because they were thought was lunatics, because they actually really believed communism was possible and they really believed the propaganda. So yeah, they realized it was impossible. They tried to build some kind of form of state socialism, and it just arrested there for a very long time. You would never actually, like, they never actually got there. They never tried, they never made any serious steps towards getting to communism, towards having the state wither and die, like Marx suggested. They never made any effort to get there once they got into power.
That's like an end goal that people who would self-describe as communists are. Now, what I would say a radical communist is somebody that wants a violent revolution to overthrow the government and take over and implement that system as closely as possible now, which is something that has happened in a variety of places to varying degrees of atrocities that fell out of that. Or
When you
whatever.
say you're an anti-capitalist, though, does that mean that you are critical of capitalism?
You might
which
be
I am.
too.
I mean, a
I
variety.
think
Which
you,
I am.
I think
Yeah.
you say you're a capitalist, but it's a
But
lot
I am,
more
because
nuanced.
I'm not against the idea of capitalism. I think it's a good system with the correct
With a lot of
mechanisms in place.
corrections.
Because when you say you're anti-capitalist,
But this is it. It's not capitalism or socialism. It's just, okay, we have capitalism. In every country, even in America, it doesn't matter where you are, has some form of state intervention, has regulations, has laws, regulates the system to some degree. So this is the point I always kind of make, is that we all agree on some level that there should be some provision of public services, there should be some state funding, unless you're an ANCAP. So once we've done that, it kind of just seems like, okay, we have this system, this economic system, we should then use the state to try and mitigate that, to try and mitigate any of the fallout from capitalism. Yeah, sure, if we just let capitalism run rampant, it would probably pollute all the atmosphere. We need green regulations from the government and investment in green technology. If we just had anarcho-capitalism and you lose your job, you starve. Right? It's good we have social provision. But that doesn't make the way of running the capitalism, which is just a way of running the economy, that doesn't make that bad or mean that someone's discovered a better system. And hey, if somebody wants to provide serious evidence that there's a better system and it's realistically possible, like, great. Okay, great. Then I'm for it. Why would I be against it? I just never seen this. And it just always seems like we can gradually, over time, we're gradually bringing in more regulations, making things fairer, with some stops and starts. And so it just kind of does seem like the state can regulate capitalism to mitigate its negative effects. It just seems like that's the case, and that we don't need to rush off to some insane pie in the sky theory that's never ever going to happen.
it sounds like you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't believe in capitalism as a governing
What it comes down to
concept.
me too is when you threw out that line from Glenn Ross about greed being good or whatever. I
don't think
accept
that's not from that. That's like
isn't
that like
It's
a?
like Gordon Gekko.
Yeah, no,
That's
it's
like
from
a
Glengarry Glen Ross.
I don't think that's the first time that was written.
Well,
Go ahead.
it's
Anyway,
certainly not
regardless.
it's certainly not the first time that people have felt that way. But that line that you
film with Tom Cruise
that
or
people
something?
often
Not Tom Cruise with what's Tom Cruise? I don't know. I've not seen it. I've just seen the line.
repeat is from that
It was
play.
with,
But Anyways, yeah, I mean, all it comes down to me is that I don't think arranging society based on greed is good for the human spirit, and I think we see the consequences of that all around us.
So
A hyper-capitalistic.
Is it based
society.
on greed? Really? Like I realize
greed.
there is elements of greed to but do we really live in a society that's based on greed? We might live in a society where we allow too much, where we sometimes allow too much greed. That's true, but do we actually live in a society that is based on greed? Not really.
Needs to have.
And again, that's not
bumpers.
the same as saying we allow too much greed.
Okay, because the idea that we can live in a society without greed is a fairy tale. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And you can't approach a practical way of governing a huge body of people without looking at it realistically. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the USSR again, and I mean, it's a catastrophe because the people on the top who rise to the top are the ones that are pathological.
Like
they
Stalin.
are
You
greedy.
don't think that happens in our society?
It is, but like, but it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Where are the like US gulags, at least in modern times? Right? Of course, yes, yeah, there's been many horrendous things done in the past. It's not like liberalism or capitalism prevent you from doing evil like slavery or empire. But where are the gulags? Like, where are the political... Where it's just not comparable. So, yeah, do you have people being greedy? Do you have people being sociopathic? Yeah. But the worst you can get is Donald Trump. The worst you can get in the Soviet Union is Joseph Stalin.
That's not the antithesis of everything that we stand for.
You think that capitalism does a
if-
better job at
you got to
harnessing
you have to
that
be
greed?
aware. Say, listen, we live in a world where greed is inevitable, and so we need to harness that for the good that it does provide, and we need to put on bumpers for the bad things it does do. Because if we're like, yo, we need communism, and everybody needs greed is bad, and nobody, everyone is equal. The cycles are going to rise to the top. And they're not gonna fucking do what needs to be done. It's just not.
I think that's more a consequence of it not working, though. I don't think the issue was just the psychos will rise to the top. The issue is you can't get there. You have your evolution, you have dictatorship of the proletariat, and then you have a load of power and it just corrupts everybody. And then the power hungry madman comes to the top. It was because you can't actually get from there to. Even if no one had done that, even if people were super benevolent, you just can't actually get to communism. People often point out that Tito's Yugoslavia wasn't great, but it was still way better than the Soviet Union. Certainly anything that happened under Stalin, but even after that, and yet it still wasn't that much better. It still never achieved the sorts of freedom, the sorts of living standards, the sorts of just like quality of life that you actually have in capitalist countries. So the whole thing was a shambles, and it just doesn't work. It was the economics didn't work, and yeah, you end up with just a corrupt state with the Communist Party having absolute power. So I think it's more a product of that, not just like, if everyone was nice, it would have worked. Like, would it? Like, would you have gotten to communism from there? Really? Like, can it even work? Can it really exist? Could we all just live on communes and the state just wither and die and everything be automated, like Marx said? I know that's not the. I know that's just one version of things, but still,
not going to happen, and it's not realistic. People are going to cut. They're not going to live that way. They're not going to live that way. The psychopaths, which there's going to be like 10-20% are just full-on psychopaths, are the ones that are going to become powerful, and they're going to take advantage of the system. They're going to become our oligarchs. They're going to become
So, do you believe that
exploitative.
Do you think the United States, with like its democracy, like our election system and democracy, gives good safeguards, or at least gives some safeguards to preventing the sociopaths, like you're talking about, that rise up through like a totalitarian system?
That's not even a problem that you can control for. There's no way we're going to keep
You don't think
sociopaths from
having
becoming
like
billionaires.
elections and being a democratic and term limits, or having our president change every 4 years?
Are we
prevents-
talking about like rich people or elected officials?
I'm talking about elected officials. I'm talking about like, essentially what I'm asking is, do you think democracy is a good thing, and do you think democracy is what helps prevent?
Yeah,
that from happening?
but obviously our
Okay,
democracy
so-
isn't perfect either.
Right.
You know.
But you think ultimately that being a democracy,
I think this is it though. Like, just because something's imperfect does not mean we should throw the whole thing out. It's fucked. Why not just try and fix some of the imperfections? Like, let alone go, well, you know what? We can just manufacture a whole new system and it'll just work, even though it never has, and it leads to chaos every single time.
living in a society that votes and has, the people agree on how who should represent us and who should lead us is something like that's a better system than like say China, right? Where they have a council of elites and somebody is elected from within, right?
I feel like this guy's just feel like crumbling completely in the face of him. To be fair to the commies, there's probably people who can do a better job than this guy.
Okay, so what if
Like it does look like Ethan's really got him on the back foot.
we ran companies that way? Because companies aren't democracies. They're totalitarian.
So how do you run a company? So first of all, usually how are companies made? Usually,
Are you saying like an entrepreneur starts a small business?
like
or something?
Apple. Let's just take Apple or Google.
Right.
Made by a few enterprising people. So yada yada yada. It's made by 3-4 people. Apple, and over the years, it's growing. And so, how do you run Apple?
At what point does it become like subject to public opinion on who's going to run it and
That's
stuff
just-
like that? At what point does it get big enough
Right.
to
That's
make
a good
those
question.
decisions?
And that's something that. See, that's why I asked
Not
the
re-
question about how
Like,
do you
do
feel
you-
about elected.
Because like a
Government.
independent artist is also running a business and could be making a lot of money depending. There's a wide range. So how do we what do we define as?
Businesses aren't government?
No, they're not. They're
part
run
of, like,
very
the
differently,
freedom
I
we
agree,
enjoy.
But
Yeah, you can vote for governments that can regulate businesses, right? You can just vote for that. Yeah, I'm not saying you're going to win. I'm saying, just vote and it'll all sort itself out. No, we need to work. We need to campaign for workers' rights, for unions, for all of these things. These things are really important. But I don't think the solution is just that workers in a company vote on everything that happens in a company. I don't think most people actually that's what they need to do well at work. I think most people should have trade unions. They should be able to vote on unions. If they're being exploited, the union should go on strike, or should negotiate. If the negotiations break down, they should go on strike. That's right. But I don't think that the solution to the economic woes is just let people vote. I mean, consider, for example, if you just said, well, okay, let's make all companies democracies in the 1960s. What would have happened in Alabama if you were black and working in a factory?
But I agree that
we're
like a
talking about
company like
ways that we
Google is almost like
organize-
government.
yeah, we're in
That's
a
a whole
broad
different
sense.
aspect of regulating these
Yeah.
like monster
Yeah.
businesses.
Right, and oftentimes, when there are critical parts of society that we deem like off limits to the private sector, we're like, let's say like the military. We don't, the government has a monopoly on that, right? Monopoly on like keeping an armed force and everything.
Monopoly on violence.
And at least in theory, I mean, obviously there's a whole different conversation, but in the United States, we have some say over what our military does as a result of that, right? Because we elect the people, we elect the commander in chief, we elect who's in
Right,
charge.
so
and
you
we
have
elect
some
the
say
person
over what businesses
who
do because you
is
elect
able to
the
control
government,
the
and
armed
they can
forces,
regulate
right?
I mean,
business.
theoretically, the armed forces should be controlled by Congress, which hasn't really ever hasn't been taking place recently.
You're right. Yeah, according to the Constitution.
But you're saying, what are you saying? Just what I mean.
I'm just saying that we can agree that there are certain things in society that we have decided that it's best if this is not left up to the entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Yes, government
Right.
should be in charge of stuff that has great
But
social.
that's social
And
democracy.
so
Is he
some
coming over
people
with
might think that the work that people are required to do to live in our society is also something essential and should be controlled more democratically in the same way that we control government institutions.
How?
Like what?
The same. I mean,
How
what
do
do
you
you
do
mean?
that?
How we do? There are public institutions, right?
So electricity isn't invented by one dude who's just like, I have this great idea, I'm going to make a company. Okay.
Well, like
The internet
you
isn't owned
nationalise
by
them.
one dude.
Like, it's
You know,
to be fair, what they would do is just nationalise them. In some countries, they are like some of these things are nationalised. So essentially, you have the government comes in and buys up all the stock. Sometimes they can issue compulsory purchase orders. I think that used to happen, or it's been floated at least in Britain, that you would. So, say the water company doesn't want to sell you all the stock, you go, well, we're nationalising water. You have to sell us all of your stock. So we'll give you the money, but you have to sell to us.
I mean, water isn't owned by one dude. Just by the definition of a utility.
It
So if
belongs to
Google,
the common.
how are you going to go to a guy who founded Google and say, how do we make the government? We're taking it for the government. So what does that mean? What does that mean?
Okay, well, I mean, so I feel like there's two tracks here.
I wonder if I was able to, not a communist, was able to answer that question really easily. Or not a socialist, that's socialism, not really communism. Not a socialist, was able to answer that question very easily. And this guy's just going to flounder. I feel a bit bad for like the leftoids here because this dude isn't doing a good job. I don't agree with what he's saying anyway, but he's also doing a bad job of debating. And allowing anything to kind of just like take down every single one of his points while he flounders. So
Because there's, how do we like, you're now asking, like, how...
look, he seems quite nervous again. If he's like, but you're now asking me that. So what if? What if
Because we're in deep, right? There's a sunk cost here. We've built a society the way that we are, and ripping that all out is going to be a very disruptive process. So you're right.
Again, I'm not trying to blow away on trumpet, but I'd like to point out I was able to easily answer that question. The government buys up all the stock. Done. And I don't think they should do that with a lot of these companies. Some of them maybe. We privatised the trains in Britain. That's been a disaster. Should probably be brought back into public use. Some people are suggesting water should be. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes you should nationalise things. Sometimes you shouldn't. I actually really hate blanket ideologies that are like, okay, nationalisation is completely good, or nationalisation is terrible. We should never do it. Everything should be privatised. Why don't we just look sector by sector? Just look sector by sector. So in Britain, when the phone lines used to be nationalised, that's probably bad because you can have competition. There should be good service. You can get different levels of service, different levels of pricing, etc. With rail, well, you're just selling lines to people, so it's always one company. Like if I want to go London to Leeds, I have to go on LNER. So where's the competition? Where's the market? It's not really capitalism. It's just monopoly. There's just a series of small monopolies.
Like what, if the government tomorrow were to nationalize all of Silicon Valley and just say, yeah, these are all publicly owned and take it all away, obviously people wouldn't go quietly with that, especially the people that own Google. They wouldn't like that, right? And so, I mean, that's something that has happened in history a lot when socialist revolutions happen.
Is he advocating for something and he has like no idea about it? Because I don't agree with nationalising Google, but I understand how you would do it and what nationalisation is. Like, look how fucking terrified he looks at the question of how do you nationalise something? Bear in mind, this has been done in many countries repeatedly, not across the board or with companies like Google, but again, Scandinavia, oil companies are nationalised, a lot of utilities are nationalised. So this is perfectly doable. You just buy all the shares. The government buys up the shares. He's advocating for this and he has no idea, and now he's terrified because he's being made to answer, how do you do any of what you're saying? And he doesn't even know the answer when there is an answer.
The revolution happens and it's like, okay, we're going to nationalize all the oil industry. Like that all just belongs to the government now. You don't get to own that as a private citizen anymore. Mm-hmm. And so where is that line? What is essential to society?
But
what
oil,
is it?
Again, oil, you're talking about a natural resource. I'm talking about like a big company.
Sure.
They invented their own product and sell it. I personally don't think there's anything wrong with the rules that govern that come from, the people, from the concepts of guardrails, high level, that they have to treat their employees with a certain level of, they have to compensate them to a certain level.
Yeah, we're coming
to
back
provide,
to that social democrat.
So like,
and listen, social.
So
like,
I don't
got a
think
problem with what you're describing, really. Like, I agree. I mean, and
I don't think putting the government in charge is going to
capitalism
improve
is
anything. If you were talking about like massive businesses like, Google, again, just to use an Apple, You're talking about natural resources that benefit all people that need. Then that's it. Then But listen, I'm open to having a debate about these things. I'm not
Yeah, no,
saying
I think
one
we're
way or
having
the
a good
other. Like,
conversation about it. I just think that I think it comes down to, again, where that line is drawn. And it's like internet stuff, for example. You're right. I mean, especially in the early days when it's just little companies figuring it out. But then at a certain point, when does the internet become a human right? When does living in society, does the internet become a requirement? And
He's not successfully answered the question of how you nationalise something, which was what he was asked, which has a simple answer and has been done before. To be fair, the fella, I think he was just in there doing his job and like working with Ethan. I don't think he was expecting a huge debate on communism. So you can be fair to him a bit. It's not like he's had time to prep, but still, I didn't really do a lot of prep to cover this. Like, I didn't really do any prep to cover this, and yet I was easily able to answer.
does it become fucked up to deny people that because they can't afford it?
sure.
No, I agree with
and
that
so,
stuff.
And so it starts to get kind of gray, right?
Well, I'm looking at this nuance. I'm not saying we need to have conversations about stuff as it happens, and we need to have it from like a benevolent point of view and a realistic point of view. I'm not saying I'm open to having a conversation about socializing anything, right? But that's
Right.
what it should be. It should be a conversation and about like the social good that something can have, and if it needs to be,
Right.
is it being, is this business being owned privately to a great detriment to the majority of people? Are people not having access to it who need it? And this is a
You just
conversation to
think it
have
should
on
be
a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and so you're an incrementalist, and you think.
And so
you know,
far, like we're talking about the really big companies, which we all agree on that, like Google, Facebook,
But I'm not-
all the scary stuff. I agree, 100%. But like, what about the in between? What about everything else, like under that?
But I'm not. But again, I'm talking about like regulations. I'm talking about like antitrust shit. I'm not talking about full government takeovers of the company.
Okay, right, but it doesn't. The full government takeover of the company is the extreme end of that. But like the middle ground of what I'm talking about is unions. That's what unions.
I'm
are, right?
pro-union. I think unions
and
are great, and I think workers should have power.
So right, and so all a union really is in a sense, it's somewhat democratizing a workplace because now the union gets a say in how the business is conducted. Hey, the workers, we're all getting together and we're saying, unless you improve this, unless you do this, we're not showing up, and we're going to prevent
This is a
anybody.
negotiation. This is a conversation. You know what I mean? It's not
Right,
like
well,
it's not a government interjecting and telling a business what they can and can't do.
Well, in a sense, it is because government gives protections to unions. We at one point decided that these are important, and we created a structure where we.
I'm in favor of that.
Right, because
I am
prior to
too.
that, the owners of the factory or whatever, when the workers tried to do something like that, they literally fucking shoot them.
Right. So yeah,
You know
that's
what I mean?
Not okay.
That
I'm
happened.
Okay, but I'm in favor of unions.
Okay, well.
And by the way, if you look
at
what you look at Scandinavia, which I think is like as close to a model
they have
society,
very
they have
high
tons of
union
unions,
participation rate, right? Yeah,
right?
like extremely.
And probably tons of laws protecting unions. And so again, I'm looking at social democracy like in Scandinavia and saying, this is a model society, and it's as close as we're going to get as an equitable
trying
society,
to,
realistically, too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what is the point we don't agree on.
Well, I just. Listen,
Well,
I don't
here's what we're
I don't think we're
disagreeing on.
that far apart from each other.
You saying anti-capitalism. Are you opposed to the idea of capitalism? Because I agree that capitalism in its current form is unsustainable.
I would say that I am opposed to it, but I would say I am far less radical than many that think that we should tear it down immediately. I think that the ripple effect of that would inevitably be extremely violent and disruptive to society. And I'm more of the incrementalist. Now, I would say I am for the left of you because I think that the end goal should be a little bit further in that direction than what you're saying. But
in what way?
Which is
we're
why I
talking,
just
we're
wanna
talking in
understand.
degrees.
In what
here.
way? Yeah.
Like what?
In what way are you? First of all, saying like capitalism shouldn't exist is like, I feel a fairy tale. It's just not a realistic expectation for humans to. I just
Or like
don't.
for me, it's like define what would that look like. I just want to like get to an understanding where we
how about in,
understand
like, really
each other.
simple terms. I think that you know, an incrementally push left society that's moving away from capitalism a little bit would likely have companies use profit sharing models with their employees on a much bigger basis. And you see some companies doing that, but if you study it over time, what has happened is the opposite of that, is that the profits of companies are getting concentrated more and more up.
Well, we're just talking about regulating and stuff again.
Right. So I would say that one thing that you could do is you could regulate it that you, as an owner and a CEO of a company, the profits that the company is generating, you're obligated to share that with the people that work for you on a much bigger scale.
It's just a matter of
Well, doesn't that just mean raising wages, raising minimum wage? Like, yeah, listen, hey, we're in a crisis of low wages at the moment. I'm like certainly up for raising wages significantly, but that's not quite the same as implementing socialism. I'm not sure what he means.
Rather than right now,
fairly-
which the goal always is to pay your workers as little as possible. That is, and that's not like a secret.
And that's
or
human
nefarious.
nature, bro. That's why we need to adjust where that bar is. We need to agree that bar,
Yeah, you
because
need to deal
listen,
with
it's
the-
only
And again,
natural.
that's why I'm saying
for
we're not that far
for
away.
big-
We're talking in degrees of how far you move the bar.
I
I'd
just-
probably move it further than you, but I'm not. I don't own a company like.
But yeah, I mean, listen, if you're just debating on like how much to compensate your employees fairly, that's like, you know,
And we're talking about first steps
to
here
be like,
too.
yo,
mean,
I think every company should give X amount of profits to employees. It's also overly complicated because in the sense, it's like, what if you don't have a profitable year? Then the employees make less? Also, fudge the numbers. How many
happens.
businesses fudge their numbers?
But that what you just described happens all the time.
Okay,
People
but
get
I'm
fired,
not talking
they get
about
laid
what
off,
happens.
or they get wage cuts.
What happens is not good. What is happening is not good. We both agree.
Yeah, no. I think, obviously we both agree on that. Yeah, 100%.
This guy's not dealt with, like, I wouldn't agree with him even if he was making the best arguments. But this guy is not doing a good job. It's like, yeah, we agree on that. It's like, and it's like, yeah, but well, some people think that we should have like more equitable work, and it's like, well, but, okay, just argue why you think, how we overthrow capitalism, how we implement socialism. Just try and explain the system. This is the problem. Again, well, people notice something's wrong, and then you go, "Let's have socialism," and they don't even know the actual arguments for socialists make for why we should have socialism. They're just saying it. It's just to believe, yeah, I'm a socialist, I'm a communist. What does that actually mean? I don't know. That's where we're at, isn't it? That's where we're at, isn't it?
You said what's happening.
What's
now.
happening now is not good.
Yeah.
But okay. I think
I feel
having a
like-
bare minimum bar of what we provide, rights to basic human rights to people, like FDR was carving out, is a better system, personally, and a simpler system, and a more realistic system.
Okay.
I feel like the conversations of like how far to go are like, I'd be willing to have them, but I feel like first I just want to see like normal shit happening. You know what I mean? Like,
That's the thing is like, that's why again,
'Cause that's almost like
I have
fantasy
like my
lands.
personal beliefs of like idealism of like how I would love to see the world work
Yeah.
with like rainbows and everything, and then I have the other side of like, okay, we live in the real world, what can happen or whatever, and so those are different conversations, and so yeah, I mean, for now I would, public health care would be great, you know.
What? He just completely backed down and gone, yeah, sure. So until I figure out what I actually believe in how we're going to do it, sure, just, social democracy. I feel like a lot of people do this. They just go, yeah, I'm anti-capitalist. How do we do it? Well, Vosh does this. I've seen Vosh do this. People go, well, you're an anarchist, so how does that actually work? How do you eliminate the government? And he's like, well, this is an esoteric system. Really, at the moment, I'd be for social democratic reforms. I was like, well, okay. So what are we even arguing about then?
Like that's the thing is,
If you're gonna people just want to label themselves, I'm a communist, I'm an anarchist, I'm this, and then it's like, well, like in practice, are you? Not like, do you really like think, well, yeah, I'd love this kind of society? Do you actually think that that's where we're going, or what we should try and implement now? But no. Okay. So it's just you want to have that label.
My opinion, we're in such a bad spot that, like, yeah, you know, I'll take just getting Medicare for all. Like that would be a huge W, sure. And that's in my opinion not far enough, but I'll take it. I'm not going to say no to that, right?
People think
Feel me?
that I don't know. Listen, people think it's being pessimist to say it's human nature to be greedy. Show me one time in a big organized society where that wasn't the inevitability of like deep-seated societal destroying corruption.
But do you want to live in a society that encouraged that? Or
Do I want to
that-
live in a
that
perfect
checks it?
utopia? Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'm not saying perfect utopia. I'm saying quite a few people that run our country, and I'm not saying you feel this way because this isn't your opinion, but this is the prevailing attitude in this country, is that it's a good thing to arrange the way we run society around. Let's embrace that greed. Let's use it for good, like you said, rather than, hey, this is a fundamental part of human nature. We should check it.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Well,
right?
it's to me not that big of a difference. It's
I
the
think
same
it's.
thing.
I think there's a fundamental difference. There.
I'm not saying like there are people who are going to be extremely innovative and effective that are going to be motivated by wanting to be really rich and
By
really
getting money.
powerful.
Yeah, I mean,
Elon Musk is a good example. The guy's a fucking psycho piece of shit. I hate him on a level, but like what he's achieved with Tesla is undeniable in terms of moving EV to mainstream. It just is undeniable, right? And I don't
Same
even
with
want to give him the
SpaceX,
credit because I
effectively.
fucking hate him. Think he sucks. But like saying like promoting, making this, distinction between promoting greed or putting guardrails to prevent from greed. It's just, there's not a significant difference there, in my opinion. Unless you can explain. By the way, people were saying this you listen to there.
Yeah.
The show's over.
There you go. Because like he literally, like I feel a bit bad for the guy because there's other people who could try and explain, but he doesn't actually know and he has no answers and can't explain. And he's like, unless you can explain how this might work, instead of just going, well, workers should have control and you nationalize, you could do nationalization, but because the revolution happens and then you say, hey, you gotta give me your company, oil guys, and yeah. Like the guy is not doing a good job, man. Like, Ethan's just like annihilated him.
Right. I mean, it's been over. Just leave if you
yeah.
don't
Wow.
like
what
it.
time is it?
It's
No,
past
after
5.
It's after
dude.
5.
This is
Dude,
just
we got caught up.
We gotta go.
You gave yourself no green flag for not wanting to talk about politics, and then you just launched into an hour-long diatribe about socialism versus capitalism. So, liar.
I think
Liar.
it's interesting.
I think social democracy is the way to go. It's just realistic, man. And I'm pro-union, and I think people should be fairly compensated. I think people are entitled to
Right.
own a home. I think
Well, and
people are entitled to
and I
go to
would say
college. I
this-
think people are entitled to, have healthy meals. And I also think that I don't think that we should regulate how rich people can be if they're existing in that sandbox. Like I'm not going to come out here and say billionaires shouldn't exist, because if you can become a billionaire in this sandbox where you're paying your fair share to provide for people in this way, making sure you live in a society where people get houses, where people get food, where people get education. If you can do all that and still be a billionaire, then there's no problem with that, in my opinion. There's just,
Well,
you know what
we've
I mean?
had this discussion before, but I think it just comes down to whether or not you believe you can get to that level without doing horrible shit.
doing horrible shit. You mean like, can you?
Is that even an
think
attainable
so.
thing without being an immoral person?
There's billionaire has become a huge range. Look at people on the top. They're worth 200, 300 billion.
Yeah, Elon Musk billionaire is
sick.
like a lot more.
For
than
any billion, a
1
billion is
million.
1,000
Can you
million.
become
Okay,
that
if you've got $1 billion, you've got $1,000 million. Okay, I'm sorry. Any billionaire is insanely rich. Anyone who has $1,000 million, pounds, whatever, or above, you got stupid money. Okay, you got stupid money. That's crazy money. I don't have a problem with society producing billionaires if we ensure that those at the bottom are catered for. I mean, like, imagine, because I think inequality in and of itself isn't necessarily an issue. I think it becomes an issue when everyone else is struggling. So imagine if you had a society, I'm not saying we could get to this society or there's a way to get there, but just pure as a hypothetical, where everyone there lives the equivalent lifestyle, the poorest people in that society live the equivalent lifestyle to someone earning 200k today. But those at the top make Bezos look like he lives in poverty. And does that really matter? Like, would that really matter? I don't really care if someone's very, very rich. I care more like if someone's very, very poor, or even just poor. We should eliminate poverty. We should try and build a society in which everybody can live a good, enjoyable, exciting life for themselves. Build the life for themselves that they want in as much as possible.
Without doing horrible things? Definitely not. Can you get $1 billion without doing horrible things? Probably.
Well, billionaire shouldn't exist as a snappy slogan. Maybe you can quibble
Wait,
about where the
what?
line of acceptability
Is he just going like billionaires shouldn't exist as a snappy slogan, so we should just talk bollocks? Is that basically what he's saying?
is. But I think you understand in principle that at a certain point, that level of wealth, concentrated wealth,
In my model society, I don't think people could become that rich.
What about like
So-
Taylor Swift worth $740 million?
She's just an entertainer. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. That when you say billionaires shouldn't exist, I think it's about time we start making a distinction between like 100 billionaires and like, single digit billionaires. Because there is a big difference. You know what I mean? There is.
You don't
Like
think
a
it's
lot
a
of
little silly to
musicians.
quibble over that? Because again,
Not really.
it's a political slogan at the end of the day. And I feel like
I feel like this is what a lot of what he's saying is. It's like, yeah, hey, we're communists. It's also just a political slogan because really doesn't know anything about communism, has no arguments for any of it, and really just would support social democracy. But it's just a good slogan. Hey, we're anti-capitalist. Right? I feel like that's the whole point of what he's saying. Oh, it sounds cool. It sounds cool. I feel like this is the entire justification for this like geezer's ideology.
it gets the
Well,
point
it's.
across
I
pretty
think that
easily,
I
right?
think that it's not self-serving because I think plenty of people see that and they think what I'm seeing and they think that's silly. Why shouldn't people be able to be successful? Because there are people who are way too fucking rich and evil, clearly, who got that rich. It's I think there's a difference between. Like, let's say Elon Musk is 300. How wealthy is Elon? He's like 250 billion or something.
Something like that.
So he's 250 times richer than a 1 billionaire. So let's say you have 10.
Obviously, he's on the most extreme.
Let's say you have $10,000 in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that times 250? You know what I mean? Like the difference is really quite huge. 250 times,
Be 2.5 million, right?
So that's a big difference, right? Between 10,000.
I'm not. Yeah, listen.
That's the difference between having $10,000 and 2.5 million.
Yeah, but at a
having $1 billion is like.
Yeah, but
You can do anything you want.
Yeah.
Having $200 billion is like you can influence elections and change, and you can like fundamentally control the outcome of current events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen. Again, it sounds like
I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can do that much. I mean, I think somebody like Musk could completely change the way America works. But then you can make an argument if you you can buy a social media company like he has and start spreading right-wing propaganda and let a load of far-right loonies on. I mean, you could argue that.
pretty
I
much.
wonder what Musk's end game is. Has he just been Twitter broken and gone a bit mental, or is there something more sinister? Is he trying to build some kind of like right-wing cabal to just follow him and hang on his every word?
Agree with you in principle. It's just we disagree about where the line is. I think if you're at $1 billion, you're already well over the line. To you, maybe it's more than that, but
But if it's
I don't
a
understand that.
musician that got there, I don't think they did anything bad. You're saying
musician?
you had to have done
there's
bad
entertainers
stuff
that are
to get
billionaires.
to $1 billion.
he's a billionaire.
Taylor Swift is almost $1 billion.
Taylor Swift is almost there, if not already there, because I'm just looking at Google. I don't know how accurate
But again,
it is.
Listen, rock stars are cool and they can be as rich as they want.
Let's see, Beyonce. I don't know.
Jay-Z.
Rihanna.
Well, I mean, Jay-Z
But it's not
doesn't.
just making
Rihanna
money.
is accordingly 1.4
But
billion.
because she makes a lot of money from business and stuff.
Okay, but I don't think she necessarily does bad stuff to get there. I don't
Well,
see
who?
that.
Well, she.
I don't know her
who
as a
knows?
person, but
That's the thing is once it gets to a certain point, there's something along the line that
If
is
you-
probably involving some like child slavery or something. You know
Jesus
what I mean? Even
Christ!
without their knowledge, but it's like
Yeah, all billionaires. Everyone who's made $1 billion has had to do something on the level of child slavery to get there. I feel like this is again a product of not understanding how capitalism works. Yeah, people will buy things that, people will buy things that are damaging the world or products of fast fashion with being the product of sweatshops. But at the same time, people also buy things made by nice people who have made money doing decent things. Not everybody who makes $1 billion by definition has to do child slavery or something that evil in order to get there.
the system lends itself to that again because we're so focused on incentivizing finding the least common or the lowest common denominator in everything, by which I mean seeking to maximize profits, seeking to minimize expenses however you can. And there's a lot of people that are immoral and they don't give a fuck about if this is coming from child slavery in some West African country or whatever.
Someone said, Ethan, $1 billion would change
I just
my
think
life.
the system
Sorry,
it
I don't
doesn't,
have that much money.
it doesn't frown on that really. In
Sure.
a lot of ways,
I
it
think that's
encourages
another
it.
philosophical conversation about like how is our society, whether it be pure socialism or democracy, how is it using and affecting, other countries?
Mm-hmm.
That's a
That's a good
I
point
think
because there's
perhaps
actually
a
no
different-
guarantee that like you wouldn't have, especially you wouldn't have sweatshops. It'd be very hypocritical, but you wouldn't have socialist. Again, socialist countries can still do a huge amount of damage, right, in terms of the environment, in terms of exploiting workers. So it kind of depends.
conversation that
gets
you can have,
complicated
and you
real
can have the same conversation regardless. But I see a world where you can become a billionaire ethically. It's not impossible. There's 300 million people living in America, and there's a ton of money here. If you invent a really fucking awesome thing, you can become a billionaire without doing a single thing wrong.
Maybe. I feel like that's the middle path. That's the real Buddha path. Become a billionaire, but harm no other in the process.
I think it's possible. I really do. I don't know what to say.
That's the middle way.
But I'm not saying you go out there and be a billionaire. I'm just saying I don't think we need this self-imposed like here's the line rich and no richer.
I just don't think you should let a slogan like that bother you so much. It
I
sounds
think-
like, it
but I
sounds
don't-
like-
Oh God, yes, the slogan should bother you because they're coming out with stupid stuff that normal people hear and go, that's ridiculous. This is what they never understand. You don't have to just convince people like this who go, oh, socialism, I barely understand it, and go, okay, and start nodding along. You need to convince people like conservatives to come over to your side. You need to convince people who don't agree with you and go, hey, we got a slogan, all billionaires are evil. You're getting annoyed with it. It's like, no, because people hear it and they go, but that's not true though. It's the same thing with defund the police. What they actually meant was fund complete retraining for the police, more social services, all of this. But you come up with a stupid slogan and people go, don't worry about it, it's just a slogan. And then it alienates people.
I think you agree with the spirit of the slogan.
I
You
don't
just-
think the slogan serves itself well because, like I said, people are not seeing it like we're
really
just
need
talking
to
about
schedule
like
some debates.
100 billionaires. People see that and they say,
No, the poor single billionaire.
well, how are you? But like,
Come on.
They don't like the idea of you coming and taking people's money. It doesn't make sense. Like, how are you going to do that?
I mean, isn't that what taxation is? That's all they're talking.
Well, they go
taking
99%
money.
tax over every dollar of a billion. That's silly.
I mean, that's what FDR wanted.
Not 99.
There was, I think, the top tax bracket that FDR wanted was maybe it wasn't 99, but it was like 95 or something.
Let's see.
Top tax bracket. Let's see. 75%. 75 is what they got. I believe 90%.
Well, I think 90% is too high, but 75 makes more sense to me.
But we're talking like
Yeah.
in modern dollars, that was probably 90% of every dollar over like 5-10 million that you made that year.
Right. It's a tax bracket.
Yeah, it's a progressive tax.
And I like the tax bracket. I think 75% is probably more realistic.
Well, that's what it was.
And that's
now
really-
we're at what, like,
And by the way,
18?
I don't think anyone gets taxed that high in the whole world. What's one country that charges the richest people over 75%? It doesn't exist. I don't think it does.
I don't know off the top of my head. I know that. I mean, maybe.
But
you
I'm
know,
cool
like,
with that.
What's the top tax bracket in Sweden? In those Nordic countries,
No,
it's
no,
pretty
no,
high.
Probably around
It's
55.
it's
55?
not,
So
it's
he's saying
not
like
much more than
55.
what I pay here. I pay about 55%.
Okay, so there you
Also
go.
dividends, like you can just pay yourself dividend, 20%.
Well, right, and that's the reality here too. Is that everybody that's rich knows how to get around that and just
But I
doesn't
feel
pay.
like it's also
So-
important a note to like defend the democracy from capitalism, because here like lobbying is crazy. I feel like that's what's ruining America.
And that's my
personally.
point. Is like I feel. Well, I didn't make this point very well. I was trying to make the point earlier,
Make
but
any
this is why I
points
was
very
asking
well.
about what you think about democracy in general. Is that capitalism is it's anti-democratic and in more than one sense. And what Love's talking about is like how the money can corrupt our democracy and everything is a part of that. But just in general, like we run. The expectation is that companies are run from the top down in a very hierarchical way, and that there isn't much say from the bottom up. You know what I mean? It's the inverse of how we run our government. And so, defending against the worst tendencies of that, I think, is important.
That's what I advocate for.
I'm always so confused because you want to replace the system.
Button that.
What was
Okay.
it?
Oh, what happened?
So-
I didn't even hear what
I
you
said
don't
this,
even-
and I felt like maybe it came off wrong. I said, maybe that is his name.
Or whatever.
What was it? What's the actual name?
I don't even know what you're going
I
for.
have
with
no
I
idea.
guess I vaguely know it. You were trying to call me a
Communist. Yeah.
Yeah, but
What was his name?
Are you talking about Mao?
Yeah.
Oh my god, this
Right.
screen.
Mao.
This button
But what's
screen
his
is
full
epic.
name?
Mao Zedong.
So you're
yeah, they have
Mao
no clue what we're
Dan
talking
Zong?
about.
I don't know.
So
trying to think of it.
I guess I said me
Mao
and Ethan
Zedong
want to
would be a
fix
better one.
the system, like capitalism, like
Yeah.
put
Mao Zedong.
band-aids over where it kind of leaks.
How do you
No,
even
not
know-
band-aids,
know Mao
because that
Zedong?
sounds bad.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Right,
But
like,
it's not-
that one to
We want
replace it completely.
scaffoldings. We
I don't-
want-
Yeah, I mean,
I don't get why.
I don't. You don't get why? Because
I don't get why you don't want to
because
fix
I-
the system
because-
instead of replacing it.
Well, we're talking about. I mean, I am talking about fixing the system
Right.
as well, but
Yeah. Sure.
my way of fixing it would be modifying it significantly more than what
Sure.
you're saying. Band-aiding it. Not to use that term, but
Yeah.
So how do you prevent people from being billionaires? Just by doing a 99% tax?
I mean,
on
that's
the-
a real easy way, right? I mean, FDR thought it was. And yeah, I mean.
Well, okay, you want to talk about democracy. I mean, FDR's he's not a tyrant either. You know what I mean? He got 75% ultimately, like you said, and I think I would do 90. I think it's fair anywhere between 75 and 90 for the utmost,
Yeah.
99% to me just seems silly to me to tax someone 99%, even if they are a billionaire.
Well, when he said, when he was going for the 90 and got 75, that probably wasn't negotiating tactic. You know what I mean?
Okay, so 75. I mean, what the fuck? That's not enough. You know what I mean? A hell of a
probably
lot
is
more
enough.
than they
That
pay
would-
now.
All I'm
Probably will
saying
be
is
enough.
let's
Because
start
that's the more
there.
than you
Let's
want.
start somewhere.
Okay,
You know?
let's jack it up to 75. Let's go.
People
fucking go.
I think people are jaded on capitalism, understandably.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
we live
It's
in
burned us
capitalism, so
all.
obviously it's easy to see its flaws because we exist in it now.
And I understand from my perspective, thanks to Gary Vee's advice,
Different
that I
perspective.
am like a winner in capitalism, right? You might say.
W.
Thank you.
Different perspectives.
And so, listen, I've been on the losing end of capitalism too, and more it's screwing us over. But what I'm saying is we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, people.
Yeah.
It's hard.
The thing is, I feel like Ethan's just like, with no effort, like, A, destroyed the guy because he can't argue, but also B, I'm sorry, it's just like so true. It's like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, there are problems with capitalism. It seems like we can regulate those because we can compare countries around the world that have more regulations, more control, more state provision, and things seem to be better. So it doesn't seem like we need to go, like, we need to make up a new system and then implement it and hope it works. It seems more like we can just mitigate the problems caused by capitalism through, like, government, through social safety nets, through unions, etc.
It's hard to feel, charitable to capitalism as a concept when almost everyone's being burned by it. But You look
Right.
again at Scandinavia. I think that's as close as a model society as we've achieved in human history.
I want Jimmy Lee to start paying his employees. That's all I care about.
Me too, bro.
We can all agree on that one.
Yeah, we all agree on
And
that.
I'll tell you, I'll take it even further. I think it should be illegal to have unpaid employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Period. You know what I mean?
I think it is.
Not
No, 'cause you can have
Well, no,
internships.
internships like the intern.
The thing with internships as well is it when you don't pay them or you pay them a pittance, what it means is who the internships actually benefit are the children of people who can afford to pay the child's rent, or maybe people who live at home. If you live in a big city already and you can get an internship near home, okay, you're very lucky. But if you have to move to London or New York, anywhere, wherever, right, to try and get a job, and you don't, if you just have to move and go somewhere, it becomes impossible. So my brother did an internship where they paid him, but still they pay him a pittance. KPMG. Because he was able to do that, so my mum could afford to pay his rent while he was doing it. Children from working class families, from less fortunate families, can't afford to do that. So even they get, hey, we're giving these opportunities, yeah, you're giving them to rich people or to the children of rich people. That's who gets those opportunities.
Oh, I
labor
guess that's
shit.
true. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. It does seem a little gray, though, doesn't it?
I'm surprised by how many people think that, like, by the way, I say radical communism because, again, you're talking about undoing the vast,
Again, there's like so many like ways to
primary-
approach it. I mean,
What Ethan I think he's trying to say is he's talking about completely redesigning the whole of society in a manufactured and inorganic way, when every time we've tried that it's led to chaos, and when the current system just kind of evolved organically and you're just trying to replace it. Especially when it seems like, again, there's the other option of mitigating the problems, of dealing with the problems that arise and having safety nets, having unions, having workers' rights, having all of these things to offset the issues with capitalism, rather than, again, go for the pie in the sky revolutionary communism nonsense.
every country,
What I
even
would
the
call-
communist ones, are operating via capitalism.
right. Well, there's a lot of nuance to that too. I mean, the
We can't
whole
just
thing with
dig it out, man.
what's that?
We should just dig it out and replace it. Anti-capitalism. I don't know. I'm
Well, listen, a lot of people agree with you that
not
I
in
think
this
you're
guy.
saying that. It's like, yeah, a lot of people agree with you.
reform
Do you
rather than
agree?
revolution.
'Cause
That's
it's pretty-
a long-standing debate on
Yeah.
the left of what the superior strategy is.
Yeah. But I think capitalism gets a bad rep just because that, up until now, it hasn't been checked. And we're at this point now where we call it late stage capitalism, where it really is on life support. And it's just not working. It's not a good system. Unchecked capitalism is evil. It's not working well. But I do think that a hybrid system of socialism capitalism is a really good system that can be humanistic, benevolent, and serve also the productivity and innovation that some people would say capitalism breeds.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, we really got.
But by the way, I want to say
We
this.
gotta go.
Some of
We're
y'all,
the ones that gotta
some of you
go.
guys in chat are so annoying. Like, I'm not.
Oh, don't let 'em.
I'm not
Can imagine chat's
advocating.
like, is
Like
there a
y'all
chat
act
replay?
like I'm saying like. I think that there should be no minimum.
Dan, remember that? Guillotine. Does it say guillotine? No, I think I imagined that.
Wage, and people should be fucking like, if they can't afford come on, stop it.
Well, our
People act
audience
like I'm
has- our audience-
stomping on workers' faces because I don't rev
Our
share.
audience has a wide range of views,
System is working exactly
and obviously
as it's
leans
created
pretty
to.
far left, just because
I know, a lot of people say
all
double
the
you down.
personalities on the
Really?
show do.
Really?
Listen, Every time a measure comes to raise taxes in LA or
How are
otherwise,
you
I
watching
always
Dan's
vote yes.
performance?
I said I'm going to pay
Second Dan win of the, like, because again, even if you agree with him, he did a shit job. How are they like second Dan win of the week? They're like L on Ethan. L Ethan. Like, these people don't care. It's all just tribalism. It's all just, hey, we're on the socialist team. Because again, it's just a label they throw out. Because again, if you were like super communist, you go, hey, he's doing a bad job of explaining it, but here's how you should actually look at it.
%. Is that not enough for you guys? 75%? What other rich person is saying that? Find one.
Well, listen, I am not a radical communist, so I can't make that argument for them. I'm sure they will in the comment section and on the Reddit over the next few days. But but yeah, I mean,
I think the greed is good thing threw people off too. I think that people being greedy is an inherent and inevitable trait of the human spirit. I'm not saying of everybody. I'm not saying everybody's greedy. I'm saying if you take 1,000 people, a certain percent of them are going to be greedy and motivated by power. And
what's 75% going to do for the slave children of the lithium mines? Why would socialism mean you weren't still buying off genocidal militias? Are you going to invade? What are you going to do? How are you going to get the coltan?
wealth and status. Okay?
I'm
And
not saying we should do that. We need to do something about what's going on in Congo, but I just don't think it's going to be anything social like a lot of these people agree with or know about or understand. It's okay if we disagree with you. Yeah, it's okay if you disagree, but it doesn't mean your disagreements aren't stupid.
times there's going to be an oversight of these people's being sociopaths and being super capable, super smart. And we can't harness this for what good it can do, which is like innovation, productivity, efficiency, and stuff like that, while also regulating it to make sure it doesn't also ruin society and that it serves people well in general. And I think that's just realistic. It doesn't matter if you're in a society, doesn't matter if you're living in pure socialism, doesn't matter if you're living in, any form of governance. There's going to be a percent of people that are highly capable, intelligent sociopaths obsessed with money and status and power. And so, and there's going to be good people that are successful too. That's not what I'm saying. But these are the people that really cause the problem. And so
let's not encourage them.
That's just, how you do not encourage, that's human nature, bro. Like, I just don't believe that there's ever going to be...
You just don't think that there's anything that you can do about people being greedy and fucking people over? There's just nothing you can do
People are
about that?
born with fucking, that's like saying...
People are selfish and people do motivated reasoning. And this is something I think a lot of people don't understand. I think a lot of people imagine that, you have some billionaire who's destroying the planet, or you have Bezos and he's exploiting his workers, that he sits around going, yes, I'm evil, I will exploit them, I am the devil, right? When really... they make all kinds of justifications. Well, this is how the best way to do it. We maximise efficiency. They try and convince themselves of some of their own corporate bollocks, like, our workers are a family, blah, blah, blah. They have all these justifications for their actions. The issue is people are too good at excusing themselves. And you get that under any system.
Want anyone to be born a sociopath. Let's end sociopathy.
I'm not saying
You're not gonna end sociopathy.
Yeah, of course not. I'm not saying that. Of course, I agree with what you're saying. That there's people are greedy. Just should that behavior be rewarded?
I don't even know what that means. What do you mean rewarded? Maybe, and now it is. But I'm saying
again, nobody. Ian's telling you to shut up.
I have to pee. I'm sorry. I have to jump in.
Hold on. What do you mean? What do you? I don't even know what that means. It's encouraged. I mean, it is what it is.
You said it yourself. You said greed is good.
I just said that was misconstrued.
But here's the thing. But okay, fine.
I'm saying it's inevitable.
Right.
And
You
so
don't
let's
believe
harness
that?
it for the good it can do.
You don't believe that. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that run the world do.
Okay. Well, that's inevitable.
I don't think that that's inevitable. That's where we differ.
Well, regardless,
we should do
I don't
something
think it
about
should matter.
I think
what
this.
people
I
think,
don't
because
think. I don't think
ultimately-
this is the best like form of discussion. It's like, does your economic system work? But I mean, the damn guy doesn't even know what his economic system is really, or how you achieve it, or why you do it. So, oh dear. So I think like that's the actual interesting discussion, rather than, oh hey, but people will be greedy. Okay, even if we can eliminate greed, will your economic system work?
In the way
Maybe.
that the framework that things are built, it's not going to matter what they think about greed.
I agree.
There's going to be
and that's why it's not a great framework, in my opinion.
Why?
Because of what you just said.
It's a framework that doesn't matter what you think about greed.
Right.
And it controls the worst outcome for what they can do. How is that bad?
It controls the worst outcome?
Yeah. In
I'm
my
not sure I follow
social
your
democratic utopia.
Oh, you're saying, okay, yeah. I'm talking about the state of the world now. You're talking about, like you said, your vision of the future. So,
Ethan said, you guys really think there's people born that aren't going to be like sociopathically greedy? That seems silly to me, but what do I know?
What's his chance?
You want to live in a society where sociopaths aren't born
You
anymore.
don't need innovation.
Let's do
we need
that. That
compassion.
sounds like a great idea to me. Let's eradicate sociopathy.
Okay,
go back.
let's see how well you do. Like the just level of technological advancement just completely stops. Doesn't even seem that compassionate. As we've had innovation, living standards have risen. So yeah, these comments are stupid. Siding on the side of greed. Point proven.
maybe. Where's that coming from?
Let's erase
That was
you.
the guy originally.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm
That's
trying to
all,
learn
folks.
his controls.
That's all, folks.
Oh.
Guys, you're right. You guys, here's my platform.
You're getting stun locked.
Let's eradicate
Gotta go.
sociopathy and personality disorders. We're not gonna encourage that. No more of that, you guys. Everyone's gonna be born a perfect, healthy human with perfect parents, a perfect family.
Nobody said
There'll
it.
never be any damaged people. It's all good all the time. Let's not even worry about it. Everyone's a saint. Everyone's great. Everyone has humanity's best interest at heart. Definitely not their own. Let's go, guys. It's perfect utopia time. Everybody's born.
I just want to live in Star
perfect.
Trek, bro. That's all I'm saying. I just want to live in fucking Star Trek.
Everybody.
I
has
want to
toys
live there
and
too.
puppies.
Well,
I love
got
Star
bad
Trek.
news, Hila.
When does Star Trek place take in like?
I love
10,000
Star
years?
Trek.
I got
But we
bad
also need to be
They
able
get in a time
to.
machine.
Yeah, we need to be able to travel.
Oh wait,
in
those
like,
don't exist either.
No, you need replicators that could just make you whatever the hell you want. So you eliminate scarcity.
we need turbo speed.
Okay, congratulations. We just cured all personality disorders. Every child is born with puppies and toys and futons.
Nobody's
go.
making this point.
Futons.
Ay.
And we all have food. Nobody will be hungry because we have food particle generators that can make any meal you want.
Replicators, hell yeah.
Thanks, guys. But yeah, I mean, the show's been over, so I'm just humoring our conversation.
Dan,
but thank you.
You wouldn't
The real
have had
heads are here.
Baldur's Gate in a communism.
That's
all I gotta
kind
say.
of fair.
That's true.
all I gotta
Are you
say.
saying you want to socialize Baldur's Gate?
You wouldn't be
Larian
able to have,
Studios.
You wouldn't be
Aren't
able
they?
to.
Wait a minute. Aren't they? Where are they from? Larian Studios.
I don't know if this
The Soviet
is
Union.
going to make things worse or help, but just say that, Ethan, I think you're a wonderful boss. Very generous.
Oh.
I've had many bosses,
You know what?
including my
I will
own
say that
uncle.
too. Since we're
and-
on the
No.
topic.
Well, thank you for saying that, AB. Unfortunately, my EP wants to overthrow me and put my head on fire.
I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth.
Just say thank
fucking
you,
A.
Ethan. Take a compliment.
Oh, I did. I said thank you, AB, and then I said,
And
"Damn,
Dan
watch
said
it."
it too. But Dan said it too.
No,
Wait,
I know. We have a wonderful relationship.
Eli, I think
know.
you're a great boss, too.
Thank you.
we have a wonderful relationship here.
Okay, they're just moving. He's signing off. So yeah. Anyway, Ethan did way better in that than I thought he would. That was actually kind of a bit surprising. I thought he'd be shitter. Not like shitter, but just Ethan's not the best debater, and he's kind of has this kind of way. Yeah. like that, right? You know what I mean? Kind of, but he still was able to easily just destroy this guy. The Dan guy, don't know him, but because the Dan guy didn't even know his own arguments. He didn't know the arguments for his own side. He was making terrible arguments for communism. He didn't know how nationalisation is done, even though it is a thing that has been done. And it just was like basically like, well, I want to call myself a communist or a socialist. So that seemed to be his whole thing. He just wants to call himself that. That's what he wants to be. That's what he wants to call himself. Yeah. Okay, so that was a good debate. That was fun. I need to start scheduling myself some debates. I've got to sort this out. I need to start networking with people.